Imagine being a king, a god, a war hero, a villain, and a political exile all in one lifetime. Now, imagine being so revered that an entire religion was built around you while still alive. Sound like something out of a Hollywood epic movie, right? But this isn't fiction. This is the story of Haile Selassie, the last emperor of Ethiopia. A man whose life was a mix of triumph, controversy, exile, and divinity. His story is a whirlwind of imperial grandeur, global diplomacy, resistance against colonialism, and eventually a tragic downfall that reads like Shakespearean drama. From rallying his people against Italian invaders to addressing the League of Nations in a moment that cemented his place in world history. Haile Selassie wasn't just a ruler, he was a legend in his own time. But legends are complicated and his legacy is anything but simple. Strap in. This is a ride through one of the most fascinating lives of the 20th century. The early years, birth of a future emperor. Born on July 23rd, 1892 in Ijeza-Goro, Ethiopia, Haile Selassie wasn't always called by that name. He was born Tafari Mokone, a member of the Ethiopian aristocracy, and from an early age it was clear he was destined for something great. His father, Ras Mokone, was a close advisor to Emperor Menelik II, and young Tafari received an elite education, learning multiple languages and political strategy before he was even old enough to shave. By the time he was in his teens, he had already been appointed governor of a province. Let's be honest, most of us were probably still figuring out how to do taxes at that age. But Tafari was different. His intelligence, cunning, and ambition set him apart. And when Emperor Menelik II died, a power struggle began. Eventually, in 1916, Tafari helped depose Empress Zewditu and became regent of Ethiopia, effectively ruling the country. But he wasn't done yet. In 1930, after Emperor Zewditu died, Tafari was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia and given the name Haile Selassie, meaning might of the Trinity. He was now the absolute ruler of Ethiopia. But ruling an empire is never as easy as it sounds. Rastafarianism, the making of a god. Haile Selassie's rise coincided with a movement that would make him immortal, literally. In the 1930s, in Jamaica, a religious movement called Rastafarianism began, inspired by prophecy from Marcus Garvey. Many saw Haile Selassie as the living God, the Messiah who will lead Africa descendants out of oppression. When Selassie visited Jamaica in 1966, thousands of Rasta greeted him as a deity, some claiming they saw the stigmata of Christ in his hands. Imagine waking up one day and finding out the people on another continent believe you're a god. Haile Selassie, ever the diplomat, never outrightly confirmed or denied their beliefs. Instead, he maintained an air of mystery, allowing his legend to grow. The war against Italy, a David versus Goliath moment. In 1935, Mussolini's Italy decided to invade Ethiopia, hoping to expand its empire. Haile Selassie found himself facing one of the world's most technologically advanced armies with a military that still fought with spears and swords. Against all odds, Ethiopian forces resisted bravely and Selassie himself became a symbol of defiance. But the odds were impossible. impossible. After a brutal campaign, Italy occupied Ethiopia in 1936, forcing Selassie into exile in Britain. Many thought this was the end of his reign, but Selassie wasn't finished. In one of the most famous speeches in history, he addressed the League of Nations, condemning Italy's aggression and pleading for international support. His words, "It is us today, it will be you tomorrow," became prophetic as World War II erupted soon after. With the help of the British, Selassie returned to Ethiopia in 1941, reclaiming his throne and solidifying his image as a world leader who had defied colonialism, the reformer, a modernizing emperor. After World War II, Haile Selassie set out to modernize Ethiopia. He introduced a new constitution, expanded education, and strengthened the country's global standing. He was a master diplomat, aligning Ethiopian with both Western powers and newly independent African nations. But modernization came at a cost. Selassie's rule as an absolute monarch and his reform often benefited the elite, while rural Ethiopians struggled. He crushed opposition with an iron fist, and as time went on, his once glorious reputation began to crumble. The downfall, famine, revolution, and the end of an era. By the 1970s, Ethiopia was in crisis. A devastating famine struck the country, killing hundreds of thousands. The world was shocked by images of starving Ethiopians, while Haile Selassie's government seems oblivious to the suffering. His once unshakable grip to power weakened, and in 1974, a military coup known as the Dogs overthrew him. Selassie was placed under house arrest, and in 1975, he died under mysterious circumstances. Many believed he was assassinated by the new regime. His body was buried in a modest grave, and for years his legacy was erased from official history. But legends don't die easily. Decades later, in 2000, his remains were reburied in a grand state funeral, honoring the emperor who had once been seen as divine. The legacy of Haile Selassie. So, who was Haile Selassie really? Was he the noble emperor who resisted colonial oppression, the divine figure worshipped by millions, or the autocrat who clung to power while his people suffered? The answer, as with all great historical figures, is complicated. His legacy is one of contradiction. To many Ethiopians, he was a leader who modernized their country but also failed to address deep inequalities. To the Rastafarians, he remained a messianic figure, a spiritual beacon of African pride. To historians, he's a fascinating case study in leadership, power, and shifting tides of history. Regardless of how he's remembered, Haile Selassie's impact on Ethiopia, Africa, and the world cannot be denied. His life was a testament to the highs and the lows of leadership. One moment celebrated, the next condemned. And that perhaps is the true mark of a historical giant. So, here's a question for you. If Haile Selassie had been more open to democratic reform, could he have avoided being overthrown? Or was his downfall inevitable in the face of changing times? How much of a leader's legacy is shaped by their own action versus the way history chooses to remember them? Let us know in the comments below. Ready for more royal intrigue and timeless tale? Check out the next video on screen to uncover another fascinating chapter in history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all things royal. See you in the next video.